Hi there, and welcome back to another Cooking Around the World. Today we're going to do a dish called Moroccan spiced lamb pie. Favourite, I love anything Moroccan, Middle Easternish, and here's a nice simple version. We all like a pie. I'm going to show you a few different ways of presenting this. So let's get going with this. We'll get our oil heating. We just want to get the oil to on a medium heat. Just warm that pan up a little bit. There we go. Some olive, I'm just using extra virgin olive oil. You can just use normal olive oil or a vegetable oil if you want. Now what we're going to do is, over here, if you'll see Jackie, it requires one onion finely chopped. See how small I've cut that up. Don't want big chunks in this pie or meatloaf style thing. So cut them down, and we will cook them out. So, but just don't leave big chunks. And also, you'll see I've grated already. You don't need to see me grate one zucchini, one carrot, and we'll put some garlic in this in a moment also. So let's get our onion in this, start just lightly cooking off. As that begins, I'm going to put 2 cloves of garlic into this. You always see me, and my cooking group has always seen me, see a little cooking assistant has arrived as soon as the knife comes out.
Activity in the kitchen.
You always see me finely mincing the garlic for these. I'm going to do a little bit different today because sometimes you just have to. We'll get the shell off that. What I'm going to do today is what I quite often do at home. Just use the garlic crusher. Now, if you're using a garlic crusher, that's as easy as it is. And those who know to use a garlic crusher or regularly use a garlic crusher, you don't really even have to shell them. I just cut the base of the garlic off, whack that into your press, and it'll just squeeze it out through shell. It doesn't squeeze the shell through, but it squeezes the garlic out of its shell. So that's all that's required for that. And we have 2 cloves of garlic in there now. A bit of a sizzle coming on. We just have to take the rawness out of this. You don't want the raw onion in the pie. And it does cook in the oven for 45 to 50 minutes. Just give this a little bit of a cook out at this stage. I'll get the rest of this going also. The zucchini, I'll get that cooking now. The good thing about doing the zucchini like this is it will cook out some of the moisture from the cook some of the moisture out of the zucchini itself. It helps soften the carrot, help cook some of the moisture out of both the carrot and the zucchini. Now this is one of those recipes where if you're feeding the family, feeding the kids, you can sneak quite a bit of veg into it. You see how much now from what was originally in that pan for the onion, you see the quantity in there now. It's treble the amount in that. So that's sneaking some veg into this dish. Now, as it's starting to cook down a little bit, I'm just going to add Moroccan seasoning. You see all this in the recipe. This is running virtually as per the recipe. Just Moroccan seasoning. You can use any brand you like. If you go online, you can actually find the ingredients, and which I quite often do, make my own Moroccan seasoning, just using, it's all basic cumin, coriander, all the usual suspects. And we have half a tablespoon. Ooh, that'll be one of these. There we go. Nice big spoonful of the Moroccan seasoning. Stir that through. The Moroccan seasoning will have things like paprika. I'm assuming it'll have a bit of garlic. A bit of turmeric. Smell turmeric in there. All sorts of goodies. Dehydrated vegetables. Oh, they don't give you much here. Dehydrated vegetables, herbs, salt, spices, flavour. Thanks, Hoyts. You can go online and find the ingredients and make your own. That's just about where we want it now. I think I might add a few of my own at this point. You can also, if you have a good deli, or this comes from our butcher in our local shopping centre, who also has a little providore section selling Middle Eastern and all sorts of bits and pieces in there. Moroccan spices, Arabic 7 spices. That's on the back of them, they tell you all the good stuff that's in them. I'm just going to add a little bit of extra coriander, only because I want to, and half a teaspoon of cumin. Cumin, turmeric, however you want to pronounce these. Oh, that's added a hell of a aroma to it. I've just used that Hoyt's Moroccan seasoning because you can find it easily at your local supermarket, Coles, Woolies, whatever. But whatever you can get is a good thing. Okay, that's all we need to do, just soften those vegetables up. I'll turn that off now. Move that out of the way. This next thing we have to do, get our, this is a lamb dish as stated earlier, get our lamb mince ready. Just break it up a little bit. Now,
Mind the cat.
our main prop. Oh, I squashed the prop. You should actually just shut up, will you?
Give him some lamb.
He knows just some mince here. No, I don't want to get him started. You should actually let this cool down a little bit, purely because I don't want to be sticking my hand in it while it's too hot. But we will get this on the roll. Try to spread it out to cool it a little bit. Before it's so hot, it'll just start to cook the top of that mince too. Now, also in the recipe, you'll see we add currants. So there's half a cup of currants. We add quarter cup of pine nuts. Now I've toasted the pine nuts. If you don't know how to toast pine nuts, just get a small fry pan, warm it up, chuck your raw pine nuts into it, and do keep an eye on it. Just keep moving them around till they just start to get a little bit of colour, and then let them cool off. The change in flavour is stunning. Now you see here, I did turn my back for a moment. I've taken them just a fraction over, and they're a little bit darkened on one side. But that's all right. We'll get away with that one. Never turn your back on toasting pine nuts, otherwise you'll just burn the hell out of them. Okay. Now, one more thing I want to add here. The recipe calls for adding some lemon zest. And you can actually get a peeler or a zester. Another way I like to do it is just get a lemon, remove some of this outer skin, and then just put the knife through it, cut it very, very fine. And you use, what about a good teaspoon though? I asked for one whole lemon zested. So they're talking about putting a lot of zest into this. Another thing I like to do is I like to get preserved lemon. If you've never looked, you can buy it from the supermarket once again. That's Sandhurst brand, I think is an Always Fresh, that's the other brand. You see the lemon in there, it's been preserved in brine or in salty water. And what you do is you take out a chunk, remove the pith, that's just a big soggy bit in the middle. You don't want that. And then we'll cut this up into very fine slivers. Is that slivers or slithers, Jack?
I think we'll go with slithers.
Sliver. You ever said that when you say the word, it's either sliver or slither, depending on what the context is, and you think, did I use the right one? So you chop this down into very fine and into little bits. Now this, because it's been preserved in brine or salty water, it will be very strong. So if you're ever using it, it's amazing in Middle Eastern dishes, but be very, very mindful of how much you put in, because if you put in too much, it will just totally blow the dish away. And I've done that before. I put in too much preserved lemon into a dish, and it's ruined the dish. You just pucker up in every mouthful because it's so strong. Right, we want to add half a cup of breadcrumbs. These are my homemade breadcrumbs, leftover bread or bread rolls. Just chuck them into your blender, your chopping machine, whatever you use. And this one's actually quite chunky, which is good. About half a cup. And that just helps to soften your meatloaf, your mince when you're making. If you're making rissoles or meatballs, whatever, the breadcrumbs always help to soften them up. We've got everything all aboard. Let's see what else we need to do here. Breadcrumbs, pine nuts all in. Almost forgot. One of my favourites, coriander. Over here, Jack. Just a bunch of coriander. I've run it through the sink, and you have to wash all the dirt because these are grown in a very sandy soil, so you get a lot of sand in them. So give them a good wash, and I put them into my salad spinner and just remove all the water from them. Remove all the water from the bunch, and why I do that is I use some now, and what I don't use, I mince up fairly finely, put into a freezer bag or a takeaway container, and put in the freezer until next time you need coriander. If you don't dry out your herb too much, get all the water out of it, when you put it in the fridge, it'll turn into an ice block. So just dry it with your salad spinner or whatever method you use. I'm going to take off all those roots. I won't use them today. I'm just going to put some of the stem. Finely chopped stem. What do they call for? About half a cup. That's more than enough. That'll get us rocking. You can see now from that 500 grams, half a kilo of lamb mince, you can see how much that's now added to it. So there's going to be quite a lot will come off this. Quite a lot of the mince mixture will come out of this. Now for the favourite part, we're just going to mix it all together. Oh gee, I can still feel the heat in there. All those spices coming out of that are actually really nice. See the turmeric in there, my hands are going yellow. If you wanted to, you could do this with, I don't know if you can do this with spoons and forks and that sort of stuff. You really have to give this a good mix up. And getting tactile with your foods is always a good thing, I reckon. That's what cooking's all about. Isn't that right, Jackie?
No, I don't like getting it in my fingernails.
So I keep mine well trimmed. Actually, even with that, because of those vegetables are still warm that I put in, I can feel there's not much coldness in there anymore. So I've got that pretty all mixed through, I think. Let me give my hand a quick wash here. Lucky I don't make too much of a mix, don't you?
Cat will get it.
Cat doesn't eat coriander. Now, I'll save the rest of that coriander for garnish or whatever I don't use for this meal. As I said, I'll mince it up finely like I did with the other bits. Put it into a freezer bag, into the freezer. How'd it go, Jack? Now, with this recipe, can you zoom in on that photo without it going silly? You'd make a very rustic looking pie. And this is done with short crust pastry. You can do it with puff pastry, that's not an issue. And they do it in one long, but you get 1.5 pieces, 1.5 squares of your pastry and make one long one. You lay the mince mixture down the center, leaving, I think they say about 6 centimeters either side, a couple of inches either side, and you fold it over so that the center of the meat is showing. Sort of like a flip top version. I'm not going to do that at the moment because I don't need to make that much. I'm just going to show you a few simple little bits here, and then the rest of mine might turn into hamburgers, Moroccan burgers, or Moroccan meatballs or something. So what I've got here, come down here, Jack. This is just as you can see, a 6 muffin pan tin, and I've got 2 loaded already. And I'm going to show you another thing in a moment, but what we'll do is just load these up. We'll just fold over the edges. I'll paint them with a little bit of milk in a moment. And the other one, the other way I want to do this, just on a piece of baking paper. Now, this is going to be like a mini version of how they do it in the recipe. The mince mixture goes down the middle. Now, I can actually hear some of you people saying, if I'm doing it like that, there's one other very simple step that we could do here and turn these into sausage rolls, couldn't we? So there's another possibility with this. See how much I've still got here. I could make heaps and heaps of these things. This would be a good one to feed the family with. Yeah. What I'm going to do, this is how it's done in the recipe. Just fold it over on the edges like that. Fold the ends up and pinch them together, and if any moisture comes out, that'll hold it within the pie. See now, that's a mini version of what the recipe looks like. So in the recipe it'll be that wide. Okay, these are now going to go into the oven for about at least 40 to 50 minutes. And remember, this is short crust pastry, so it won't puff up like a normal puff pastry. I'll just wash these down. Whilst we're still on, we'll wash these down with a little bit of just a bit of milk. I just do this with my fingers. You can do it with a pastry brush if you wish, but yeah, look at that. As I said, touch your food. This will just help it brown up a little bit. You can also use egg wash for this if you care to. If you're doing the full amount, might be worthwhile doing an egg wash for it. But I'm only doing this a little bit, so I'm not going to bother. Now the rest of my mince mixture will become, I think, burgers. Okay, we'll get this in the oven and we'll be back in a little while. Okay, here we are. Take a look at that, Jackie. It's just come out of the oven. Remember, this is short crust pastry, so it's not going to puff up like a normal puff pastry would. Nicely cooked, all crusty all around, crispy all around, not soft on the bottom. This took me, actually, it was 35 minutes in my oven at 180, but I got a very, very efficient oven. So just be careful, keep an eye on it with whatever your system is. Some ovens you might need a little bit longer, some less, just keep an eye on it. If you look over here, here's the two little baby ones we did. See, they're all ready to come out. Coax one of them out, look at that. Perfect. Brown bottom, perfect. Great little, these are actually a bit bigger than party pies because that'd be quite a mouthful there. All we have to do with this now, while we were away, I just chopped up all the rest of my coriander, and that's in a freezer bag. That'll go into the freezer now. Just sprinkle a bit of fresh coriander over it. Little salad on the side. Little blob of that's a natural Greek yogurt. There we have it. The Moroccan spiced lamb pie done. That's about a third the size of it would be if you followed the recipe. It would be 3 times the size of that. There are a few little things that I didn't do on this. Firstly, you can spread some breadcrumb inside the pastry, at the bottom of the pastry, before you put the mince meat on, and it helps absorb any moisture that comes out. There was a bit of moisture in there. The other thing they do say, sprinkle some cumin seeds on the edge of the pastry after you've egg washed it or milked it or whatever. And same with these. Look how cute they are, they're just sensational. And that's probably a nice mouthful for the average person anyway. I'm gonna have to have all that for lunch today.
Your lunch.
That's my lunch. Okay, I hope you enjoy that one. This is just a little supplemental recipe. We might be able to tag it somewhere on down the end of the series. So enjoy it.